Today we're in Lenexa, Kansas, where I'm going to get in the ring with co-founder of Title Boxing, Tony Carbajo. I'm Thom Ruhe, and this is Top of Mind. I'm here with Tony Carbajo of Title Boxing. Tony, thank you so much for hosting us today.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
Why don't we start where most of us do, and that is in the beginning. Tell me, what was the genesis for Title Boxing?
When I was younger, I started boxing at the age of 8. I played football, basketball, soccer, played sports, my whole life. All my friends that I played with in school, when I was about in 6th grade, were all about a foot taller than me and weighed about 30, 40, 50 pounds more than me. And so I wanted to do something, I wanted to keep competing in sports. And so I heard about, boxing, and I said, that goes by weight. And I walked into a boxing club, and from the minute I walked in, I was just enamored.
You were hooked.
I was hooked. It was a passion of mine. And so I boxed. I weighed 60 pounds when I started. I was 8 years old. I boxed for about 10, 11 years till I was 19. And I won the Kansas City Golden Gloves a couple times, and traveled all across the United States boxing, and I got a Golden Glove scholarship, which helped me go to Kansas State University. And so when I got done with school, I always wanted to be always wanted to be involved in boxing. I didn't want to keep competing at professional level, but I wanted to keep stay involved somehow. And so it was always in the back of my mind that doing something. And
you wanted to be like in business somehow in the boxing world.
Exactly. And when I boxed, equipment was really hard to get. Really, you couldn't go into a Dick's or something and get equipment because it wasn't a big enough sport to them to have a complete boxing section. Right. So, when I was boxing, a pair of gloves cost like $399 for
$400 for a pair of boxing gloves.
And this was in the mid '70s. It was. Everlast was using union labor, making them in the Bronx, and stuffing them with horsehair. And after you'd use them for about a week or so, all the horsehair would get pushed back into the wrist area, and you were pretty much bare knuckling it.
Wow.
And there was basically a chalkboard at the club. Hey, I get them 6, and you'd get them. They'd be all stinky, smelly, sweaty, and somebody had to sit there and lace them up for you. And there's about 2 or 3 pair of gloves in the gym. So our idea was, how can you get equipment to the people that want it and at an affordable price? So that was our mindset when we started.
So, all right, we can see that boxing is in your blood, going all the way back to you were 8 years old. It's definitely a passion. That's obvious. But how do you make the transition from it's a passion to something I actually want to start, doing a business with?
My background, my degree was in marketing, public relations, and my business partner, David Hansen, ever since his father has the same type of business. He distributes roller skates and inline skates to roller rinks and hockey clubs and places like that. So David worked in a warehouse from the time he was about 8 years old till he was 18 and went to University of Kansas. And so he knew the warehouse part, so we'd sit there and we'd talk and, well, I know this part, well, I know the equipment part, and I know the catalog part. And so at the time, the internet really wasn't this was in the, mid 90s. So the internet was kind of just getting started. Right. There was kind of home pages, but there really wasn't shopping carts. So, everything was direct mail. You produced a catalog, you sent it out to a mailing list, and you crossed your fingers and hoped the phone rang. So when we started, it was him and I. We maybe had we had about a 24-page catalog. We had maybe 50 products. And
so Dave had the logistics understanding, your partner.
He knew the warehousing and inventory.
Specialty knowledge,
yeah.
And put those two together.
Yep.
To form Title Boxing. And that was in what year?
That was in 1998.
98. It was just the two of you?
It was just two of us. So, we had about a 24-page catalog with maybe 50 products. We had a mailing list of maybe 10,000 names somewhere in there. So we mailed it out and crossed our fingers. We'd answer the phone during the day, and then in the in the evening we'd go back, box up the orders, drive them down to UPS, drop them off, and
kind of like it is today, right?
Yeah, and our goal at the time was we never really, all we wanted to do was, our goal was just, can we make a living selling boxing equipment?
Right.
And it was never, we want to be this big empire, we want to get 3 employees or 5 or 50. It was just, can we make a living selling boxing equipment? And so we just came in every day and, just said, we're going to get better today than we were yesterday. And, so, this glove sells well. Hey, what if we, put this, new gel type, they use it in tennis shoes. Let's put gel in there and see if that makes them better. Let's offer it in a couple different colors. People are asking for a headgear that, something doesn't hit their face. So let's make it like a football helmet where it has a bar and you can't get a glove in there so people can work out. And
how do you take, so that's what you're talking about is product innovation.
Yes.
And the evolving product line that you have and figuring out what you're going to sell and how you're going to do it. How do you determine that? Do you take customer feedback? Do you solicit that directly from users of your product?
Yeah, at the beginning, he and I talked to every customer. So whether it was a gym owner, whether it was somebody from the U.S. Naval Academy or somebody at Gold's Gym that taught boxing class or something. So we talked to every customer because it was just him and I answering the phone. So we always just every day was just, hey, let's try and do the equipment better. Let's do this better. Let's do that better. And it was just, we were all about the process and never thought about here's our end goal. It was just
worrying about where you're going to be.
And
clearly you didn't worry about it because today you're how big?
Well, today we're the world's largest distributor and manufacturer of boxing equipment. So
it's incredible.
And still, we've never really taken a victory lap or a victory dinner. It's just there's still things that, hey, we got this list of things we want to do. To-do list, and so we just never look back. It's always looking forward.
The largest manufacturer of this equipment, and you're here in Lenexa, Kansas.
Yeah.
Like, who would have thought, right? Is there anything else that ties boxing to Lenexa, to Kansas for that matter?
Like, seriously, like the amateur boxing and professional boxing, it's not a big mecca or anything, but what's great about Lenexa or Kansas City for distribution is, we ship everything by, everything goes out UPS, and it's, 2 or 3 days to East Coast, 2 or 3 days to the West Coast. Anywhere you're shipping, it's the most convenient and most efficient way to ship them to customers.
I seem to recall, and we spoke earlier today, about some pretty pay-per-view fights that, people probably don't understand that the guys in the ring, they're wearing your gloves.
Yeah, as part of our sales, we sell to Joe Smith that's hitting a heavy bag in his basement. We sell to, the military services. We sell to, professional boxers, amateur boxers. We sell to, women that are just, staying in shape. We sell to boxing clubs. We sell to, Don King, Bob Arum.
How do you crack Bob King? How does Don King? How's that happen?
The crazy part was he was one of our very first customers.
Really?
And, they pay their bills, and so we've never had a problem with them, and we've been supplying them gloves for 15 years.
Did you have to ship them product to test first, or was it just dumb luck that they
came
across you?
I had a relationship. David and I had a relationship with his kind of event coordinator, and they were kind of the ones that ordered the gloves and stuff. And he said, "Hey, I'm gonna give you guys a shot. If you don't let me down, And so that's our thing. If we're all about exceeding expectations with any customer we have. So, you order something today, it goes out the door today, it's going to go out right. If you ordered size 10 in red, you're going to get size 10 in red, and it's not going to be black and size 6. You're going to get what you ordered. And so, every day we ship out between 1,000 and 3,000 orders.
So, talking about training and being fit, obviously boxers and MMA fighters have to be fit. And that really was, as I understand, an inspiration for yet another kind of business venture for Title, and that's the clubs.
Yeah, the clubs. When I was in college, I did a speech. I did not a thesis, but I did a big report on boxing, and there was a study that boxing, it takes 98% of your body's muscles and to do a boxing workout. when you get done with those things, you'll see people high-fiving. It's like they just got done running a 10K or something. It's so empowering, and it's a positive release of frustrations. You go in there and you get toned, and they do ab stuff and medicine ball stuff at the end, and core and trunk stuff. So it's just such a great way to get in shape. The amazing part that I realized was, 5-6 years ago, if we'd put pink gloves in our catalog, we'd have got laughed out of the market. Now, we bring pink gloves in by the truckload because the title boxing clubs most of them have about 65 to 70% female membership.
Boxing is not just for the boys anymore.
Yeah, and so it's, they do it to, stay in shape and keep trim. And so, now we have, pink, lime green, purple, all these boxing gloves made specifically for women, for the clubs. And the other part is, it kind of got us out of our, expanded our box. Our box was mainly amateur or professional boxers,
right,
or health clubs or people that are, box for, well, now you got all these people that'll never go to a boxing club, they'll never go to a boxing gym. They're going to a title club to get in shape, and basically going and punch the bag for an hour and burn 500 to 1,000 calories.
Thank you so much for getting in the ring with us today and sharing the story.
I appreciate it.
Boxing.
I've lived in Kansas City my whole life, and I'm definitely not moving. So.
Well, Kansas City is better off for having title boxing here. Thanks again.
I appreciate it.